Hello and welcome to the Infor Birst user group about embedding in Birst, standard embedding. We had it on February 16th. I'd forgotten to record the first part of it, so we're going to do a quick review of the first half of the presentation, and then we're going to marry it up with the second half that was actually captured on the 16th. All right, I'm Bill Payne, CEO of Agile Dragon Group. Special thanks to Paula Burton, who made a lot of the D3 content available, as well as kind of advised on kind of how to talk about a lot of this stuff. All right, so we're going to talk about Birst embedding in a couple of different aspects. We're going to start with how to embed Birst in a parent web application, okay? And then we're going to talk about how to embed things into Birst, right? So there's two different handshakes happening here. However, when we combine them, we actually can create something very interesting, which is I can now present visualizations from external sources into Birst and into that parent web application. And if you're on Cloud Suite right now, that parent web application is really your Mingle home pages. Okay, and we're gonna talk about that. I'll show you one real quick. But basically, we're talking about these Mingle home pages. You know, you get in here through home pages, and then you can actually create, you know, as many as you want. And this is our web widget. So let's get back to discussion. All right. So we've got our two basic types. So when we talk about embedding Birst into an application, you know, that application could be any number of things. It can be a website. I've got Birst embedded in our website, and we just use a little PHP to wrap around that SSO integration. You could embed it in Salesforce. In fact, I've been embedding Birst in Salesforce tabs and virtual force pages for a long time. And then we've got now today, I'm very excited because Infor has done some really neat stuff with the Mingle web widgets and Cloud Suite, which basically allows any Cloud Suite user to have their own homepage, you know, their own home pages. So for example, you know, this is one of the home pages that I've been created in a test environment where I can actually embed, this is Birst right here, embedded inside of that home page, right? And if once again, you get the home pages here, you know, and then we basically can add up to 20 pages currently in here. And each page can have multiple widgets, etc., right? But once again, this is a web widget. So let's get back to how we do this. All right. And then finally, we're not going to talk today, but eventually in context business intelligence. So this is where we're actually taking Visualizer and integrating it in down into our ERP application. Okay. We're not looking at that today, but it looks really cool. And I hope to do a follow-up to this in the near future. All right. So when we want to embed into a web page, into Cloud Suite, right? And any other application, really we're talking about single sign-on, SSO. And this is the piece of code or the information that allows us to make a handshake between Birst and that parent web application. Okay, and a lot of this information is in the Birst 7.9 Dashboards 2.0 user guide. And if this is in the future, I'm sure it's going to be Birst 2000.2 user guide, etc. Right? So this is in our user guide. There's a lot of information in there about it. And basically what it ends up being is we need to populate a string inside of our web application. Usually it's at different places, but basically it tells the application how to ask for information from Birst, right? And get the right stuff. And so in Cloud Suite, this is an example. This is kind of the minimal that you need to bring in, right? I guess you could, you know, drop off the module, but basically what we need to do is one, we need to tell Cloud Suite, hey, we're using app 2103 because this is the standard Birst, you know, instance that we leverage, that we use in this scenario. We need to add our ID, PID. This is really your account ID, and you can find this, you know, under your Mingle apps. You can look under, probably under whatever Birst content has been made available. You can look in there and you can often find two things, the ID, the account ID, and then the space ID for that that pre-built content. The third thing we need is our space ID. So we're able to we need to tell the application which burst space to ask for, and then we actually have to tell it the module, right? So more often than not, you're going to be embedding your dashboards, but at the end of the day, you can actually choose designer here, visualizer here. There's a lot of other, there's going to be other possibilities, right? So those are the four things that we really need to show inside our SSO request. And then on top of that, if we so desire, we can add other things. So we can say which module, we can say a specific collection and page. So often if you're embedding a particular space or solution, you're really going to be adding in, something either at the space level, or maybe you just want to limit it to that page, and we'll go over that. And then the header or subheader, which really starts talking about, which specifics are we able to, do we want to allow people to navigate or not to navigate? And I'll show you examples of both of those. So let's go and take a look at real quick of what our options are. And you can see that the help documentation is right there. So you can go into help in 2103 or any other Birst version or Birst instance and actually find your information through the help. So let's take a look. All right. So here's what we've done. We've actually, to actually create a web tab, let's start there, right? So this is really a pretty easy idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. Or you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add a new one. So we're going to add a widget, and we're going to add our web widget, and we're going to add it, okay? And so now we have two web widgets on the same page. And basically we're just going to create a copy of the same thing and get rid of the old one, okay? So you can see here's our web widget here, here's our drag and distributors. And so now I'm going to save, and I've told Cloud Suite, I'm going to have two widgets on this page, okay? And this is the original and this is the current. And literally all we need to do to create a web widget, or to tell Birst, to tell the application how to connect to Birst, okay, we just add in our SSO link. I like making them able to refresh so I can refresh it. I put launch, I save, and then basically we've got our web widget. So that one piece of code actually, or that one key, SSO sign-in, actually tells us what we need. So really quick, let's take a look at it. And I'm gonna make it really big. How about that? All right, it's gonna be big. All right, so basically here we go. We're back to our first question. So it's app 2103. This is the account ID. This is the space ID. And we want to start with new dashboards. And that's dashboards 2.0. So that's all we need to tell from within Cloud Suite how to connect to a specific Birst space. Now, the other cool thing to remember here is, since we're already in Cloud Suite, our user information is going to be passed automatically, right? Because since we signed into Cloud Suite, we got our user ID, and guess what? That user ID from Cloud Suite is already coordinated with Birst, okay? So if we have, let's say, row-level security, etc., set up in our Birst space, this will pass through automatically, okay? So that's all we have to do really to create our own window into Birst. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this. And you know what? I'm going to edit and just delete that. And I love how fast this all works. Okay, so we started off with basically just embedding Birst. Now, this is really going to add in Birst as if it's a full space. I can go in and I can edit it. It really is going to behave exactly as if I'm building it within my Birst application. At the end of the day, there's no difference going in here versus logging in through Birst from an administrative point of view, which is very cool. Even if I go in here and I say, hey, I need to look at orchestration, I can do that, etc. So now we're going to go in and we're going to say, okay, so let's look at our next option. So our next option is, let's say we want people to be able to get in and look at, the dashboard, but however, we don't really care that they be able to navigate, right? At the end of the day, we're just adding a couple of parameters. I'm going to grab those real quick and show them to you. And notice this is just taking seconds. Like there's nothing else I've set up here. Okay, so now let's go down here. I'm going to add the new one in, and we're going to show you the difference. So once again, we're going to pump that up to title. And then right here, if you'll notice, all we've done is added 2 changes. All right, we've said it's embedded, and we've hidden headers and hidden subheaders. Okay, so those 2 are really the 2 that are the most important. This allows us to basically turn off the navigation. All right, it's not a lot of work to test this out. I would suggest, going into your own environment, finding a space that you would like to experiment with, go in and do it. There's nothing you can harm. There's no way to cause an issue. So that's really the basics of SSO. Beyond that, everything else is really just adding on to that idea. And here we're talking about, this is how we created our web widget. This is how we figured out, how to connect it. So that's how we've integrated that web application back to Birst. Okay, now the next question is, we figured out how to put Birst into a parent application or into a web application, right? Now we need to figure out or discuss what or how do we put things into Birst, right? So that's really a pretty easy one. And basically, there's a couple questions there. So what can we put into Birst? Okay, so basically anything that can live in HTML. So first, you can think about it. We can put our raw HTML in there. And these are just examples, right? But there's a lot of applications out there. We could put in YouTube. We could put in SurveyMonkey. We could add, we're going to go over a library of D3s available in the marketplace. We can put SVGs, JavaScripts, and other ancillary APIs. So we're going to go back to the application. We're going to walk through some of those things. All right. So back to, there we go. So next up is, how can we put something inside of Birst, right? So what we're looking at right now, this is all standard Birst, right? So this is all standard Birst. So let's look at us embedding into Birst, right? So what can you embed? So what can you embed with HTML? And that's my little question here. And this is basically inserted. I created another little space. This is a little sample space. Once again, each of these spaces, the other great thing is this is an entirely separate space from this space. From this space, right? Each of these is a different Birst space. Very, very simple to integrate, and they can be just on separate pages. Very powerful. All right, so what this is this is basically simply embedded HTML. And it's what you would find on a web page, right? And actually how I created this was I had a customer who really liked having complex documentation for their users within Birst, right? They found it much easier for somebody to look at a report in Birst and right next to it have the documentation about it. So what we started doing is we started basically this, we just used Word to document and to build out our documentation. We export it as a web page, we grab the source, we plop it in here. And now, publish. This is really just a web page. It's showing the raw HTML, and you'll see that it allows us very easily to navigate around. So I'm going to actually refresh. I'm going to relaunch this real quick. Refresh. There we go. And the cool thing I really like is within the Word document, we actually set up a table of contents that basically allows us to guide them through the movement, right? So we even, added a little bit of navigation actually inside the HTML. And I think this would be really useful if you had, complex metrics, complex information you need to get in front of customers or users, and you could actually just add it in there like that. And then you just keep this off-site, and as you add to it, you just cut and paste new versions of it in it. Or you could even add it as a web page within Birst as well. Another use we talked about really quick was one of my favorites, YouTube. This is just a little video that we put together for a customer of ours, and all we needed to do was pull in the simple iframe reference, and this is straight off YouTube. If you go into YouTube and you say, how do I share? It'll give you options for embedding. You just click that, copy, paste it, update the size a little bit, and now you've embedded YouTube. Why? Because it's a simple piece of HTML. It's, Birst is actually acting as a website with a analytical engine on the back end, right? And this works just as if you're on your internet. Oh boy, okay. And then finally, I just put in here for fun, SurveyMonkey. And this is their website, so it's easy to configure to actually produce the survey itself. But there's a lot of applications out there that give you the tools to easily embed in your own website, and you just need to think about Birst is another website. So depending on what you want to show your users, you can actually embed it very easily in here, and then you're kind of leveraging the same security and process that allows you to just show those things to the users that they need at that point in time, right? And one of my goals for 2022 is to start looking at how do we integrate surveys in our products so that not only can we look at the usage statistics of what our users are seeing, but we can actually start gathering some feedback to say what do we like, what do we don't like, what are our suggestions in a more proactive way, right? Okay, so now we've got our survey, and let's go back to our presentation. And so now let's talk about D3. Now, D3 is basically a library or a set of libraries, open source, that you can actually leverage and build into Birst, leveraging HTML, right? So here you can see this is the HTML that we've actually created or added. And thank you, Paula Burton and the Birst product folks for putting this together. And this basically allows us to pull, you can see there, we're pulling our BQL from the Birst space, right? We've got our from all, right? So at the end of the day, we've actually taken an external Birst library and we have integrated it in there. And where do we find those? Basically, it's really easy. Just go to marketinfor.com. And if you go to the top here and type D3, you're going to get a list of all the different D3 plugins that are currently available. And if you go into any of these, you're going to be able to download a user guide, right? And you're going to be able to see what you're going. So download now. If I download it, it's going to put me through a process to log in, etc. But you click download, and you're going to pull in down here. You're going to see their visualizer extensibility library. You're going to get a PDF with it, and you're going to be able to see how to input it. All right, how to put it in. So that's all in there, and that's all free and available today. So this is just our first. This is our bubble chart, and I believe this is about where we ended our last meeting. So from this point on, we're going to be moving on to the actual meeting itself, and have a good rest of the day.
The login and all that kind of fun stuff. But you can get a full instruction manual, etc., that you can leverage and actually put it within your own Birst. Okay, and there are a boatload. There's like 15 of them, I think, or more. And we're going to go through them. Questions? Is this quiet good or quiet bad? Are you guys, all right, I'm going to keep moving. So this is our bubble chart, and we can do bullet charts. And I really enjoy the, honestly, I just love this stuff. This is what I do. So at the end of the day, anyone can do this in Birst. And Infor's gotten it out there for free. Okay. A core diagram. I have no idea what this is for, but isn't it cool? And you can see what's happening here is it's actually interacting with the Birst dashboard, right? This is the dashboard. We're applying the filter. And what happens is the filter then lets the data, updates the visualization. So you're kind of pulling it externally. You can do all sorts of cool stuff, right? Once again, and this is free, right? You got to do a little bit of, you got to use a little elbow grease to put it in yourself. Is it limited to the Infor 15, or you use any D3 library? You can use any D3 library, man. So what happened was, and Paula's on the phone, and she was awesome. Her team put all this stuff together. Paula Burton, and great lady. And yeah, I think they just ran out of time, but they got a whole bunch of them in the Infor marketplace. And yeah, so any D3, it's really pretty straightforward. We've got a decomposition. This is a cool one. Management generally really likes these suckers. So this is basically, we're interacting with the data. We can drill. Another really cool thing to know about this. So if you're in Cloud Suite, right, you got this going on. You can actually just click the little tab, and it actually pops it out in its own window. And now you can see it and you can drill. And my joke is, it's easy enough for management. Just don't, I hope I don't get in trouble with that. But that's the higher, the decomposition tree. We've got a network and a gauge here. And honestly, you can see these all are really simple to set up. Right? Once you get the visualization into Birst, it's just adding the correct dashboard name and name of the page, right? That's it. So we've got our brand. We can play in here. It's super interactive, right? We also have down here. We got another cool one. This is a fun one. So we can do water and, but you can see that it's, pretty darn quick. Okay. We've got a radar chart, and that'll take a second. Come on. It was working before. There we go. Bloop. and once again, once we get it in here, it really allows the user to leverage, Birst. Now this is Birst in here, but you still can't always, if you really want to. I've got a good buddy of mine who's, like a Web 3.0 kind of guy. He loves making his own stuff. So we're working on some stuff where, we might actually put all of this in a web page. But, you can embed this in any web page, and it gives a lot of interactivity. Okay. We've got our Sankey chart. I have no idea what this is, but we'll take a look. No idea, but this is, so we got our start and end, and we can see, each piece. So where do you start and how do you go through the process, right? And so this you can see, from revenue all the way to our end values. Actually, this is really cool. This is really cool. Next is our speedometer. I don't know if you guys remember, but years ago, everyone thought every KPI ought to have a speedometer. And I remember being a young BI consultant and basically making 5 speedometers for every C-level executive.
No.
Hey, folks. Oh, all right. Didn't know if that was a question or just someone unmuted. Next, Sunburst. I love this one. So this is basically pulling in, and we can, go in and we can select, and we can, very easily kind of go in and figure out. And once again, this is the type of analysis that, I know users love. You still got to map it to like the value of the business, right? So this is still kind of like me being a fun propeller head and going, ooh, that's cool. But, there's always use, there's going to be use cases for a few of these in every business, right? This is a fun one, time animated. And I think Dave Hintenmeyer, I think, may have presented this at one point in time on, I saw it go across on LinkedIn. But basically, they've got a time series, and we can just select, and it it gets very active, right? And it's all powerful because we're actually leveraging the browser. The browser's doing the work here. It's just asking for data from Birst, and then it's fulfilling what it needs to kind of show. We've got our word cloud, and if anyone remembers back when data science started, man, the only thing anyone could do was word clouds. Or back when we were talking about like the data lake started out originally. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And once again, all of these, everything in here you've said that we've said is a D3. Okay. All of these are free within the Infor marketplace. Okay. And if you have other ones you're interested in, I'm happy to take a look at them, or, send a, I'm sure you can ask Infor if they want to take a look, but that's really, any of those are free. You can get them today. Okay. So now we're going to leave the Infor marketplace, or we aren't leaving Infor marketplace, but any questions here? Because I'm going to go into some of the stuff that we've been doing, which is leveraging the same HTML interface, just a little bit more complex, but same basic idea, same basic. We're just embedding HTML to, pull in our JavaScript and pull data out of Birst. Any questions? All right. Okay. So now we're going to get into some of the things that we've built. So this is, oh, yes, you can tie in anything in the D3 or SVG library. Bill is showing with examples that are available in the Infor marketplace. Downloads a user guide, review how to use the HTML editor and example HTML of what the code actually looks like. Yes. What are the best resources for learning how to access Birst data in any JavaScript? Okay. I don't know about the best resources. The one I got is our dashboard 2.0. Okay. So really, dashboard 2.0, this is going to show you kind of the basics. in here about, your how you need to kind of fashion your JavaScript. Okay. And so that'll be, and it's on the Infor concierge. Okay. So just look up 7.9 dashboards 2.0 user guide. Okay. And it's JavaScript. So it can be, it can be any kind of JavaScript, I believe, right? It's not just, pure JavaScript. You can start doing other architectures in there as well. I don't know if they're architectures or what they are exactly. Okay, so back to home pages. So now we're going to go into a couple things that we've built. And basically what we did was we took the JavaScript API and our ability to embed in Birst, and we actually went in and we created our own grid. Okay, so this is a product that we call Dragon Grid, and it's, once again, using the same capabilities. And what we do is we embed a table and we give the user within our grid a little bit more flexibility, right? So for example, along the top, I can filter, if I can add a filter along the top. We've got some rows down at the bottom, so it tells me how many rows are in my filtered data set. I can interact. So over here, we've got the Birst filters, right? So you can, whenever we update that, it will update the filters. Give me just a second. Fossils. Come on, I need to refresh this. Apologies. So in here, so yeah, once again, this is all JavaScript, once again, in the dashboard. So it's very flexible. And since it's in your browser, it's pretty quick to move around, right? So I can move columns, and all of this is available for review on our website. You can just log in and see it. We can remove columns up here. We can actually add in, if we update we can update this. This is a Birst filter. So this is basically increasing what rows and information is available within our grid. So we can move things. What else can we do? Oh, we can also export this pretty easily with Excel. So this is a fast export, basically because we're pulling it out of the browser, right? So that's our export. It'll export exactly what you see. We also have the ability to cut and paste. So I can copy that with headers and I can paste it in here. And this is possible because we're basically leveraging JavaScript and we're leveraging the browser, right? So we're just taking it from the browser and putting it in something else. There's, once again, there's more videos about this out there. I don't want to spend, the whole time on this, but this just gives you an idea of other things you can do, right? Because at the end of the day, we're using Birst for its goodness of data. We're using it to kind of support our filtering, and it really frees us up to give the end user a more a simplified experience is what we're looking for. We've also taken this same concept and we've started to build out some ragged hierarchies. And so this is basically a prototype income statement we've built, where one of the things that a lot of tools have issues with is the ability to really present a ragged hierarchy. So we actually can present ragged hierarchies. And so the goal here, and this is, like I said, it's a bit ugly still, it's in dev, is really to allow us to present a CFO what they want to see, right? Because on a financial statement, you really are trying to figure out, you want to go roll up and roll down without necessarily having to add in a second, another column every time you want to drill down, right? Because you rarely have to want to drill down across your entire business. You're really just looking at, how are my costs breaking out? How is my revenue breaking out? What reps are really, doing well? So that's another thing we've created. And then we can also apply this hierarchy. So this ragged hierarchy to things like HR, who reports to whom kind of thing. We've also taken that HTML idea, right? So when you think about what we've done here, within that HTML filter, or within that HTML, I should say, we can also make that more complex. So what we've done is, where before you were looking at, here, you were looking at one report, right? Behind here, there's one query that's really driving this, right? What we've done in our switcher is basically allow for two, and theoretically they can be more, but at least two queries behind here, which allows us to basically make a very dense capability for somebody to come in and get 1, 2, 3, or 4 reports. There's often people, it's not C-level people. C-level people need a lot of information, but there are people, if you've, like, I've been talking with a lot of folks in distribution and warehousing, if you've got a warehouse manager, often they've got 2 or 3 reports they really care about, right? Like, what am I running out of? What deliveries are slow, things like that. And something like this, theoretically, you could get that on a single dashboard for that user, or in a single web widget for that user. And it would allow you to they can come in, they can see the 2 or 3 things they need. In fact, I got one customer, we haven't gotten there yet, but their CEO looks at one report every day. He literally looks at a single report every day because it's got the 2 metrics he cares about. What was his revenue, and how much inventory does he have on hand, right? So at the end of the day, the ability to put that one report on his dashboard means he's going to be able to get to that one report faster, and figure out and get to the rest of his day really quickly. Next, this one's really cool. So basically what we started doing here is, these are what's called SVGs, okay? And an SVG is a kind of a picture file, right? It's a picture that's basically divided up into pieces, right? And behind each of these pieces, there's basically a number. And so what we're doing here is Birst is telling me, or telling the visual, for each day, and these are days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you're in manufacturing, you may have seen this before. This came out of Toyota. It's called Squidip. There's another bigger process called Gemba, right? So, but at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're looking at their daily performance against 5 different metrics. This is safety, quality, delivery, inventory, and I think this is production. I don't know. I think that's it. So basically, they're looking at, you can look in here, and this is safety, and that's why it's a plus sign. And basically, any day that's red, they had at least 1 injury, and any day that's yellow, they had no injuries. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's the Birst data that's telling us how to color each of these, right? And now we can drop this in our visual, and that's what they're used to seeing. And the cool thing here is, once again, it's Birst. So theoretically, we haven't done it before, but theoretically, I can put this on their homepage, right? As well as on the big 85-inch monitor they're talking about putting up at the top of their manufacturing floor, right? So that everyone can look up at that, everyone can look here and see the same information. And Birst, and once again, this is leveraging, or would be leveraging, data out of their manufacturing environment, capturing these metrics and presenting them as, presenting them appropriately. And once again, SVG is just a very generic idea. Basically, all it's saying is we're taking some sort of diagram, we're breaking it down by pieces, and we are, enabling, we're coloring it according to the information, right? So we've got another more complex version of this coming up. And this is one created by Cindy Hosky, one of, a strong Birst person. And, the reality is that all this is one large SVG that basically is at the zip code level. And so I can leverage Birst. I can leverage the data within Birst and layer upon it that data within Birst. And we're using, Birst to do colors, et cetera, within this this map, right? So once again, that's, and we can even, drive a different, view of it if necessary. This may take a second. That's actually kind of a big query. But all right. And then finally, any questions? So that's all embedding things in dashboards. Any questions, folks? Are we still having fun? I got one more thing to show you, and then we're effectively done. All right. So one last thing, and this is something that I'm very proud of that we've built, or that not we've built, my really smart partner built. He built out. So we've created this thing we call Dragon Scan, which is basically the ability to embed a QR code inside of Designer or on the dashboard, right? But what we've done here is this is basically embedding a QR code in Designer. I thought about this because I was working with the customer and we were working in their warehouse management system. And if you know anything, I didn't realize this, but in WMS, they leverage Birst for form generation. So if you're in an Infor WMS implementation, you're going to be using Birst to generate like packing slips, invoices. A number of other applications use IDM for this process. I'm not certain exactly why they use Birst in there. I think it might be part of it that they've set it up as a live access integration. So if you know much about Birst, live access really is Birst's ability to connect directly to a data source. So what they're able to do is very efficiently update the data within the live access. Then that basically turns right around and you can do a packing slip. And that's all this is. And basically what we're doing here is behind the scenes, that's a Designer report. I can export it as PDF, right? And it's basically taking the information within Birst, it's sending it out to a service. That's kind of an API. It's sending it out to a service. It's pulling back in an encoded image for that QR code. And then it basically pops up and there we are. Okay. And each of these are actual QR codes. And if you put your phone on them, I don't know if they'll work at that size, but you can use a standard iPhone. I use an iPhone, or I'm sure any other phone, and it'll basically automatically, allow you to connect to something, right? So the idea here is we've leveraged that integration. And now from a business point of view, we can do things like add, like if you want a customer to be able to connect to the training for a particular product, you can do that. I really want to talk to someone about, are we able to, leverage this to drive someone to an e-commerce site, right? You got 3 of something, you really needed 4. Can we put that next order in, right? So there's all sorts of applications for this. And we can do other, codes. It's just that QR codes are really, really very popular, right? Or not popular, they're really useful. I mean, they had one on the Super Bowl. Apparently some Bitcoin folks just put a QR code up there and it crashed their server. Who knew? So yeah, so that's basically what we're doing there. And then, you can print this out and it goes to town. But it's basically just a form through Designer. And we've leveraged Birst to be able to serve up that QR code externally. Okay. So that is really it. Going back, all of the D3 stuff that we've looked at is actually available, in Infor Marketplace. If you want to look at any of our stuff, you can go to agiledragongroup.com. Oh boy, Agile Dragon. Oh, I put too many. I didn't even spell Agile Dragon right. Come on. I have to talk to my webmaster. There we go. And if you're interested, you can see all our stuff by clicking Get Access, and it'll take you to a form to fill out, and we'll give you access. Okay. So that's pretty much it, folks. Anyone have any questions that I, or more likely Paula, and I see Diane on the phone. Diane probably knows them too. Anyone have any questions? We got 15 minutes left. Literally no one? How about, has anyone been any OEM customers out there? Because I honestly think that this stuff is really like, we're looking at it in Cloud Suite, but it really opens up, I think, Birst's OEM capabilities. I love it in Cloud Suite, but if you're also, embedding it in your own applications, and that's kind of what we're all doing right now. Cloud Suite is really an ERP, but we all own our own analytical applications now. And we all really need to kind of figure out how to make it easier for our customers and more interesting. I will make the slide deck, and I'll go through and I'll redo a quick intro to this, and I'll slap it on the front end because I forgot to start the recording.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, this is Paula. Awesome job. And guys, I concur with Bill. He's one of our premier partners that is actually doing this. A little known fact about Birst is it started off in the OEM, right? It was all about that open platform to allow you to do this. So there were some questions that we've been answering throughout the session of, there's no one place to go, right? If you go ahead to the marketplace, as Bill indicated, or send him your contact, he can download and send you the user guide that we've written with these D3 examples. It is an attempt I had my team pretty much simplify learning how to implement the filters, as well as the color coordination, as well as the SQL code or the BQL. So look at that. But any feedback, certainly reach out to Bill, give us some feedback. We're excited about this journey.
Yeah, and someone asked, is it possible to be deployed in multi-tenant environments? Dude,
absolutely.
Yeah, is HTML working multi-tenant? Woo! Yeah, I mean that's the great thing. I mean, this really, Birst was born in the cloud, and now I really love where Infor's going with Cloud Suite and the home pages, and it's really becoming, it's really the integration. It's really the integration. We can really simplify our customers' lives. You can do context. I mean, there's so much that we can do. When embedding Birst in an external app, is it through single service account, or can each user creds be passed? Every user. So here's the deal. You can do it either way, right? You shouldn't. You can kind of make a generic, one, but you can pass user credentials. You just need to manage those and make sure you're matching up. So for example, even when I'm embedding Birst into Salesforce, right? Salesforce, you have both like a user ID and a user email. And Birst allows you within your SSO setup to specify which to use. So most of the time when I'm setting up, in Salesforce, we use the user email as the key, right? And then it matches email to username, and boom, you're good to go. So yeah, you have to pass the credentials, you have to manage the security, but as long as you can pass that, your row level security works exactly the same as if they were logging in, and everything else works, the same as well. So the main thing of the multi-tenant is the integration. Is it easy? Oh, yeah. Nothing's different in the multi-tenant environment. In fact, that's where all this started. And in fact, whether or not it looks like it or not, this is multi-tenant, folks. Okay. Like when I come in and we're basically setting up this file, right? So this SAML in here, you've got space ID, but you also have your ID PID, right? All that's doing is making sure we're connecting back to the right cloud suite. So, if you're like, that's all. I mean, it's all the same, super powerful, and it was, to me, it was just, it blew me away the first time I embedded Birst in something like 8 years ago, and I love it. This to me is like, this to me is the coolest thing. Like it always frustrated me because I didn't get a lot of work with Salesforce, and now I get a lot of work with Cloud Suite, and I can do cool stuff because now everybody has that capability, let's see. So yeah, it is just what you've seen. And folks, Birst Fridays. So the next Birst Friday is on March 4th, I think, or whatever that first Friday is. So if you guys, I want to, once again, you're welcome to bring your questions there too. If you got something that's hard, please send it to me ahead of time because I may have to read up a little bit. But, this really is built to work that way. It's really a web server with a data model behind it. It's very powerful. Any other questions, folks? Got 10 minutes left. And email me if you need, if there's anything else. I think, Paula, maybe we'll do a follow-up on ICBI at some point. I'd really like to do something around that in time, to get the more in context stuff. But honestly, from a web widget, and this is, get in there. If you've got Cloud Suite, get in there and just have fun. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's just so cool, I mean, that's just so cool and so responsive, and I can pop it out. I mean, that's just neato. It's easy enough for management. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, folks, please, thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And any other feedback, please let me know, Okay, so based on what you just stated about the web server with the data model behind it, does it mean that it is possible to kind of data in multi-tenant of Infor HCMM along with Infor WFM? Okay, that's a different question. So it really all depends on your back-end data model, right? Remember, all of this is hitting a logical burst data model. So you have to, all of these are leveraging a single burst query that are hitting a single burst data, like logical data model. So if those are entirely separate applications, probably not. If you're talking about, if you're able to, package them together, you can do it. if the data from those two systems is being integrated into a single space, you can definitely do it. But each of these is issuing a single query against a single space. Okay, you state the space ID for each of these. Okay, so if it's in a single space, you're good to go. If it's not, then I don't believe so. And honestly, I haven't tested, and I should test. I haven't tested actually even having two separate spaces on the same page. I'll do that this week. Paula, you have any thoughts on that? All right.
I think you were going in the right direction. You know, as Bill mentioned, this is a HTML is pulling the query directly back from that logical model. If it's not in that model, you can modify the content and get information in there. But depending on what you've done, if you have your own data warehouse and you've brought the data together already, it's all doable. We just want to give you the right advice that it would require a project and some modeling. Yeah. If it's not already done.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like if you got it in one burst, if you've got it in one burst logical model, you're good to go. Whether that's across two spaces, three spaces with packages, it's up to you, right? But it has to be in the same logical query to appear in a single visual. Other questions? That was a really good question. All right. Well, folks, all right, folks. Well, y'all have a good day. Thank you so much for your time. And, you know, just let me know if you have any questions. Always happy to help out. And please download from the marketplace and have a good time. All right. Talk to you later, folks. Bye-bye. I'll share the presentation out on the Infor community. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Yes, sir.
As people are signing off, I was just going to chime in real quick. I have a detailed piece that I didn't want to bother everybody else's video feed on, but
no.
You know, it's very easy to embed into the homepage from Birst, and I thought it was that easy, and I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. I copied the link and I put it into mine, which I'm in the CSD. But it continuously gives me a report not found or path not found. And I'm wondering if that's basically, in your experience, been based on the single sign-on and permission.
If you're doing it from your cloud suite to your Birst, odds are there's something wrong with your SSO string.
Okay.
And I apologize. I have a meeting right after this. But dude, if you want to drop me, if you know what I mean, go to my website, book 15 minutes with me, and believe me, it's either going to work like that or we're putting in a ticket.
Right. That's what I thought. And, you know, I've tinkered around with it. I'm like, I knew this was supposed to be very simple. And, but
it totally is. And once you get it, once you do it once, you'll be like, that's all. But yeah, I guarantee you, like I had one that I could not get to work for like 20 minutes yesterday. And then I realized, oh, I actually have an extra T on the end of the name of the page.
Right. No, that would be great. If you got 15 minutes to spare, I would love to get your eyes and expertise, and just to see if I'm doing something wrong or we got a basic setup or configuration issue that's going on with our single sign-on.
Yeah, no, just go out on our website. You can ask or you know what I mean, email me and I'll send you you know, there's a meeting link on my, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Just book 15 minutes, dude. Happy to do it, man.
So is your email address on your website?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, I'll do that. Thank you, Bill.
Of course, buddy.
All right, now take care.
Take care. All right.